Good afternoon, Seattle, and welcome back to the final season of Le Freres Heureux. Oh, how time does just fly.
Yeah.
It does indeed. I am Fraser.
And I am Ewan.
And we're in 2023 now, recording this.
Far off space year 2023.
I know, exactly. It's been almost a year. Over a year now since we recorded the first episode.
Yeah. Almost a year since the first episode came out. It was kind of mid-January, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it has been relatively smooth sailing, I think.
Yeah, we've not had any major problems.
No, I think it's been all right. Certainly, I'm not hating you.
Yeah.
I hope you're not hating me by the end of things. We didn't have such differing opinions that we were.
Yeah, we've still not had
fisticuffs.
We've still not. I think if there's, we were dreading a 5-1.
Yeah.
If one of us gave it a 5 and one of us gave an episode a 1, but I don't think that's gonna happen now because it's not happened yet.
I don't think so.
I think if it does happen in season 11, if I give something a 1 and you give it a 5, then we'll fall out.
Mainly
properly.
because I can't imagine, other than like 1 or 2 episodes,
there are
any of them being a 5.
There are very few, but I think the ones are really bad.
Yeah.
And the 5s are really good.
Yeah.
So if it happens in this season, then it'll be
it might be fisticuffs.
It'll be a hissy fit from me, frankly.
Yeah. We're coming in for landing now. It's been a bit turbulent, or this last disc is going to be a bit turbulent.
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah.
But yeah, we should get a smooth landing at the end.
I think so.
The last disc should be good, but we've got a few episodes left before we get there.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kicking off season 11. First disc is not quite as bad as I remember it.
No,
It's
not.
It's not awful.
In fact, the way I have described it in my notes is not terrible.
Yeah, not terrible.
Which is a compliment.
For
Kind
season
of.
11, it is. It is a compliment, absolutely. So yeah, I think we'll get stuck in. I don't want to do too many kind of focusing on the end announcements quite yet. We've still got a few episodes to go. We've still got other things to plan. So we'll stick with Frasier for now. And
well, before we get started with the episodes, I want to give a quick shout out to From the Desk of Maris Ronee on Instagram, who gave us a shout out in their Instagram story today, and we have had a little spike in followers on Instagram.
Is that who shouted us out?
Yes,
because they do really good memes.
They do really good memes. Very solid memes.
You told me earlier, and you were like,
I was like, it was a meme account.
We got a shout out on a meme account on Instagram. I was like, oh, that's cool. I didn't realize it was
that
from
meme account.
That's a good meme account.
From the Desk of Maris Ronee.
Yeah.
So if you're not following them on Instagram, go and follow them because it's good memes. And also, if you have followed us because of them, hello,
welcome. You're
Welcome
joining us right at the end.
Right at the end. We'll try and make it a good first episode, and then you can go back and watch the rest if you don't hate us.
Yeah. The problem that we have, right, is that I do genuinely feel like we've gotten a lot better as the series has gone on.
Yeah.
But because of how we've structured the series, you kind of have to start from scratch.
You kind of need to start from the beginning.
So I think we've probably lost quite a few listeners who have either joined now or like at the current episode and then gone back and been like, the earlier episodes aren't as good, or people who have started from scratch and not gotten to the newer episodes.
They've given up because the first couple of episodes are a bit clunky.
We're an acquired taste.
We are.
Like a good Chateauneuf de Pop.
Yeah.
Yup. I was trying to think of a good wine there, but I don't really know good wine. Okay, right, enough ramblings. From the Desk of Maris Ronee. Oh, that's quite exciting, actually.
That's exciting.
Genuinely follow and enjoy their memes.
Yeah.
But yeah, good. Right, disc 1 of season 11. Let's kick off. We have No Sex, Please, We're Skittish. So we were left at the end of season 10 on in my opinion, and I think in your opinion as well, the worst cliffhanger of the show.
Yeah.
Not just series cliffhanger, but even like individual episode cliffhangers as well. I think it's just downright sad, to be honest, seeing Roz go off the way she does.
Yeah.
But as we're brought back in season 11, they sort of in the show and very meta as well, they very much sweep that entire cliffhanger under the rug from the get-go. The first scene is Roz meeting Niles, not deliberately meeting, just bumping into Niles in Cafe Nervosa and kind of saying, I've made a huge mistake. I didn't really want to leave KCL. I didn't want to follow up with Frasier. What's your opinion? How can I get back from this as easily as possible?
Mm-hmm.
And his sort of flippant, I think it's just facetious comment is, why don't you just go back? Just pretend nothing happened. Just go back to normal. And like, on the one hand, I think it's great because I don't want any conflict between Roz. Like, it wasn't enjoyable to watch at the end of season 10.
Yeah.
So you kind of want it to get back to normal. But on the other hand, it feels like a totally wasted cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what she does.
They're obviously just going back on the cliffhanger. And it's funny. I think it's funny that they're doing exactly what Niles points out as a bad thing to do, of just pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But it is, it's kind of annoying, but it is funny at the same time.
Yeah, like the meta commentary aspect of it is quite clever and quite funny, but the context in the show is just kind of annoying. I don't know. I
had never really thought about it before when I was writing up my notes for this episode. I never considered that there is that connection between Roz just going back to work and pretending nothing happened and the season doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Do you think it was intentional?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's quite distinctly the worst cliffhanger.
Yeah,
quite noticeably. Definitely. So whether it was regarded as that at the time as well, I don't know.
Could have been.
Probably should have checked like ratings and stuff of it. But if it was, they maybe took that on board and were like, okay, let's just forget that happened and get things back on track, you know? Because I get that some people like cliffhangers, some people don't. There's differing opinions on different ones, not just within Frasier, but like in general. This one is pretty shockingly bad, just across the board. Like, in terms of how it's portrayed and also within Frasier itself, it's just really just not enjoyable to watch. So I guess they maybe saw the audience response as well and were like, let's just pretend that didn't happen.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. So yeah, Roz goes back to work. She wheels off, quite literally, the new producer that Kenny has hired for Frasier. I can't remember her name.
No, neither can I.
What was her name? Yes,
very, very brief appearance.
Yeah, the poor lady wants to make an impression and be good with Frasier. Frasier ignores her in favor of Julia. Roz then comes in and literally wheels her off down the hall in what is supposed to be funny, but is definitely like a hate crime.
Oh, I guess. yeah,
that's very illegal. Don't do that.
Definitely do not do that.
But yeah, and that kind of just goes back to normal. And Frasier, it then kind of switches perspectives for the rest of the episode to Frasier dealing with things. Up until that point, it's kind of how Roz is dealing with the situation, and then it switches back to Frasier and how he is handling everything. So he's continuing to date Julia, and then when he has all this conflict with Roz, he kind of speaks to Niles about it, and yeah, you know how Frasier is, thinks that it's all about him, and assumes that him sleeping with Roz, 2 years ago now, by the time this came out, she's become like obsessed with him and super attached to him, and it's not just that she's his friend and wants what's best for him. So he becomes a bit obsessed. He then doesn't want to sleep with Julia in case the same thing happens to her. Like the ego on this guy.
Yeah.
And this kind of leads to a bit of conflict with Julia, and they're sort of, they have an argument, and she leaves, but they don't like explicitly break up. We kind of get a bit more closure in the next episode, but in this one, she just kind of leaves, and then he and Roz make up, and basically Roz says the exact opposite of what she said in the previous season. When in this episode, she kind of says like, "Oh, we're best friends. Nothing ever is going to change that. You know, I just want what's best for you." But in the previous episode, she's like, "Choose between me or her, and this is it. I'm never coming back." And it's like, okay,
yeah, I don't really. They give it a little explanation that Roz's dad got remarried.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And apparently his new partner doesn't get along with Roz, and now they don't speak. Roz and her dad have kind of lost touch because his new partner doesn't really like her, and it kind of that made her very kind of possessive of Frasier and worried that he was going to leave as well, which makes sense, I guess, but it's frustrating that they just sort of shove that explanation in there to try and explain away, like, yeah, she was being insane at the end of the last season. Yeah, here's a half-hearted explanation that doesn't go anywhere and was never mentioned before, and also
never again.
Never again. We're not bringing this up again.
Yeah. So it doesn't really lead anywhere, but I kind of like that whole meta commentary on the episode. It is kind of clever what they tried to do, despite it being their own mistake in the first place.
Yeah, assuming it is intentional, it is funny. The whole thing is that I'm kind of like, I don't. If it wasn't, then it's just sort of ironic and it's got a bit sad. But yeah, assuming that it was intentional, it is very funny.
Yeah. So the other half of the episode, I should have said there was two halves. I just kind of dove straight in. But there is another aspect to this episode, and following on from the other half of the previous season's finale as well, is Niles and Daphne trying to conceive. And Niles has a bit of a existential crisis, I suppose you might call it, where he donated to an S bank.
An S bank.
Martin doesn't like it when he uses the word sperm. He donates to a sperm bank, or he did when he was back in college to get some extra money. And he's worried that, he might have existing biological children running around. So when he goes to investigate, he finds out that his samples were actually discarded because they weren't up to standard. He had low motility, which I don't know. I think it is quite strict when you have to donate to a sperm bank. Not that I've done a huge amount of investigation into it or anything, but I think you have to be. It's very, very strict in like your medical analysis before you do it, and your sort of your actions while you do it over like a couple of months. And while you're doing that, you can't like drink alcohol, you can't have other sexual activities, you can't eat certain foods.
Fair enough.
So it's always really funny watching shows where they're just like, oh yeah, I just donated to a sperm bank, and it's like, that's not how it works. You don't just go in, knock one out, and then get paid for it. Like that's not. It's a lot more strict. Or I mean, it might be in America, I guess.
I do not know,
but certainly here it's very, very strict.
Yeah.
So yeah, my point was it's kind of not surprising that his weren't up to standard. I imagine that's probably quite a common thing.
I would imagine, they probably do have. They would test it.
They would, it'd be quite strict in what they do. But after Niles taking on all these new diets and exercises and a automatic warmer for his loins. He finds out that it actually wasn't necessary to worry about it because Daphne's already pregnant. Yeah. And I presume that the reason for this is because Jane Leaves was pregnant again.
Yes, she was.
That's why they got very much
right into
it, down to business. They didn't want to sort of stretch it out too long and have to do another arc with Daphne getting fat again or whatever.
Yeah. Yes. Jane Leaves was pregnant with her second child.
Yeah.
Who I believe was called Finn.
Finn's a nice name.
Yeah.
I like Finn as a name. That's not relevant to anything.
It's not, but there you go.
That's nice name. So yeah, that's kind of their overarching plot, and there's quite a few episodes that reference it very directly. They have a lot of plots about the pregnancy throughout the series, but it definitely does take a little bit of a step back for the two of them compared to like when they were first getting together. There was a lot of plot very much focused on their relationship. This is sort of treating them a lot more casually.
Yeah,
just they are two other characters on the show and they're getting on with their life. You know, it's not quite as
it's usually pretty much every other B plot is kind of about their Daphne being pregnant, or about their relationship, or them having to, you know, prepare for having a child. But they don't give them too much focus.
I don't know if there's any,
especially compared
like
to
a plot, I suppose,
compared to like planning for their wedding, or when they were getting married, when they were getting engaged, or when they were like you say, when they first got together, around the time when Daphne was engaged to Donnie and stuff like that.
Which isn't a problem. I think it works. I think it's kind of nice to see them just very comfortable in the roles, and
it still lends itself to a few good episodes and some good gags, I think. Although now I'm struggling to think of any, and the only one I can think of is a really bad episode that I'm dreading having to watch again.
In this disc?
No, not in this disc. Later on.
Later on. That's fine. We'll get to that. So and that's that. So Niles and Daphne moving on with their lives, getting pregnant. Frasier and Julia still kind of up in the air at the moment, and everything else is back to normal, basically. And that's kind of us. It's better than I remember it. This opening episode.
I always sort of forget about this one because I always think that the next episode is the first episode.
Yeah.
I sort of mix them up in my head. We don't get as much of a focus on Julia. No. It's more about the fallout between Frasier and Roz, and then the B plot with Niles and Daphne. Which means that it's not as bad as I remember. It's still annoying that it's kind of just cleaning up its own mess from the end of the last season.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, absolutely, cleaning up its own mess. And it does lead into the next episode. It's not strictly a two-parter.
Yeah.
But it does most of the plot points from here do lead into the next episode.
Not a two-parter, technically, but apparently it aired back to back.
Oh, really?
They didn't air on separate weeks. These two episodes actually aired as the second one aired immediately after this, which explains something which I will get to in the next episode.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not a two-parter, like you say. It blends into it, but it's not like a to be continued or anything.
Yeah, I think it makes sense because the Julia side of things it does feel a little bit unresolved. So it kind of makes sense that it would lead into the following episode, but at the same time you could watch it on its own and things would be wrapped up to an extent.
Yeah,
I suppose. But yeah. So how did you rank it?
I gave it a 2.
Excellent. So did I.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was quite deserving of a 1.
No, it's not. I think especially compared to a couple of other episodes, even on this disc, let alone in this season, it's not bad. It has some good jokes. I think the stuff with Niles going to the sperm bank and the nurse Karen in the sperm bank is very funny.
Good. Yeah,
and some of the jokes around his what his testicular hypothermia device or whatever. Not necessarily the most sophisticated jokes,
no,
but still quite funny.
Yeah,
and I like those, and I like Roz talking about when Frasier becomes concerned that she's in love with him, and as soon as he brings up the idea, she immediately dismisses it and says something like, "God, no, weren't you there?" Which I think is very funny, and if anyone ever said that to me, I would probably die of embarrassment.
It's
probably the most, because you know she's being totally genuine.
Oh yeah,
that's a really honest insult right there. So there's funny bits, but overall, it's most of the episodes just sort of mopping up.
No, I agree. I think the sperm bank scene I think's amazing. The nurse, I don't know the actor's name. I don't know if you've got it written down.
No, I didn't.
But she is in a lot of things. She
She's-
was very much sort of sitcom character actor.
Yeah.
At the time, I recognize her from other things. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, she's very good, very dry-witted towards Niles. But I really like that her sort of sincerity
Yeah.
at the end when she tells Niles that he's got low motility and he's going to have difficulty conceiving with his wife. She kind of says like, "I'm really sorry," and there's something really nice about that. That
Yeah.
she's poking fun at him. She's trying to sort of dismiss his excitement, I suppose,
Mm-hmm.
about making jokes and having donated previously and whatever.
Yeah.
But she does care. She is quite nice about it. So yeah, I really like her as a guest star.
Yeah.
And yeah, the rest of the episode kind of just fills in around that. To be honest, that's where I gave my additional cup.
Yeah.
It's for that
that's-
scene at the S Bank.
The ass bank.
Yeah, not the ass bank.
The ass
SS
At the ass bank.
at the S Bank.
You know, going to the ass bank.
I'm moving on.
Okay.
Okay. So this follows into A Man, a Plan, and a Gal, Julia. So it does follow pretty much straight on. Frasier and Niles have a little chat about Frasier's dating habits and how he's very quick to dismiss relationships.
Mhm.
And he needs to kind of give things a bit more time. He needs to let them develop, and those words will just come back and bite him right in the ass.
Yeah.
Because Frasier takes that very much to heart, as he does with a lot of stuff Niles says,
Yeah.
which I think's nice. But he kind of takes it to the nth degree and decides he's going to get Julia back, and he's going to stick with it, despite her very noticeable flaws. He's going to power through, and he's going to give their relationship a chance. So while all this is happening, Daphne and Niles are planning their big announcement that she's pregnant, and they have to go over to Frasier's to cook dinner because their oven isn't working or whatever.
Yeah.
And Martin's really great joke about the oven.
The German even their appliances crave power. Yeah.
It's so funny.
This is the second time Niles has made a comment about his Gagano being on the fritz.
Yeah. So they come over for dinner, and after a little bit of a failed escape call, Frasier and Julia join as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, from here on out for the rest of the episode, you've pretty much got your head in your hands
Yeah.
screaming why she's still around. Because for the first half of the episode, right, she's kind of played as a bit of a redeemable character. She kind of comes over, she and Frasier make up, they have sex, and when they're talking about going on holiday and stuff, she seems quite pleasant.
Yeah.
Seems like she likes Frasier and gets on with things. But as soon as they sit down for dinner,
Mm-hmm.
she's just insufferable.
Yeah.
Just completely. She refuses to eat their food, has cereal instead. She's just talking about like psychiatry and slagging it off, and Frasier helps people with his quick psychiatry, but doesn't bleed them dry like Niles does.
Yeah.
She then spoils the announcement.
Yeah.
Daphne Niles, she overhears them in the kitchen and then spoils it in front of everyone else. What else does she do?
She answers the phone at the dinner table.
Oh yeah,
which is
a couple of times.
a cardinal
I think,
sin.
Yep.
She spoils the results of the Seahawks game.
The Seahawks game. Yeah.
It's Martin.
She then is just the absolute worst loser at Pictionary.
Oh, yeah.
She accuses Niles and Daphne of cheating just because they're good at it, and then hates on Frasier because he's not great at it.
Mm-hmm.
I do like his little Cherry Garcia.
Cherry
though.
Garcia. It's funny.
It's pretty good. Not that it's a great drawing, but it is still funny when he explains it.
Yeah.
And then after a little bit of a mishap where she chokes and nobody saves her. I love that little scene as it just pans around everyone, and they're all kind of like looking down at their shoes and each other, and is anyone gonna save her? Nah.
Yeah.
She goes off to the washroom, and the nail in the coffin of the relationship is her insulting Frasier's new cotton hand-woven cotton hand towels. I love that's the straw. That's the final straw. And thankfully, at that point, Frasier kicks her out, and she is never to be seen again.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully.
Yep.
For both Frasier and us as the audience, we don't have to suffer through it anymore.
Yeah. It is nice.
Yeah, and I like the final scene. I like that Frasier kind of takes responsibility and apologizes to everyone, and they celebrate the good news of Daphne's pregnancy. And that's kind of it.
Yep.
That's kind of the episode.
It's the episode.
Yeah, it's one of those episodes that's very much cut and dry, is what it is. There's not a whole lot to it. We have that first little segment of Frasier apologizing to Julia, and then we have the dinner and after dinner sequence for the rest of the episode, and that's about it.
Yeah. It's
very thin on the plot.
It is.
I don't know if that's to its credit, that's the one. That's the word I was looking for. To its credit or not.
Yeah.
Because I don't know you would want to give much more in terms of plot to the episode.
I think it possibly does work a little bit better as a two-parter.
Yeah.
Coming immediately off the back of the previous episode, where you've got the setup for Daphne and Elsa's pregnancy, and you've got the setup for Frasier and Julia, having their fight and then getting back together, and it helps to pad it out so the whole episode, if you watched it as a 1 40-minute episode, it wouldn't be the whole episode is just Frasier and Julia being insufferable at a dinner party.
Yeah, that's true. I suppose we've said that before about another episode. Was it Adventures in Paradise? I think we said that about.
I think Adventures in Paradise works really well. I think it was maybe more.
Just the pacing of the episode works better if you watch it in 40 minutes. If you watch 20,
if you think of it as one long episode, and kind of rather than two separate episodes.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because the dinner sequence just drag. I mean, it works. It makes you hate Julia. That's what it's trying to do. The problem is it's so difficult to watch that I think if it was any longer, it would pretty much be unwatchable. So yeah. Is there anything else going on in this episode? There isn't really. I'm trying to think where Roz is in this episode.
She's not in this episode.
She's not in this episode at all.
So this is the thing that I was... The interesting thing coming off the back of it being aired back to back as a two-parter is that Roz isn't in this episode at all because she's in the first part.
Right.
But she's not in this one at all. So technically it's not an episode without Roz, although it
kind of is.
It is one of two episodes. The other one is also on this disc.
Is it?
Yeah.
I was feeling
There's
like
not much Roz in this disc.
Yeah, I was feeling like Roz was missing from this.
The Babysitter also doesn't feature Roz.
That's weird.
There's no KACL scene or anything. It just sort of kicks straight off with... we'll get to the episode when we're talking about it. But yeah...
that's a shame. We were talking before. I'm sure we had a discussion before about after Daphne and her absence in season 8.
Yeah,
who was the next main character
to kind
with
of
the fewest episodes?
Yeah,
and I think I said it was Roz.
It may well be because
I think it must be because no one else is missing from any other episode.
I guess. I mean, Daphne was missing from not many. I think it was only 6 episodes. Is it a full disc?
I think it's
or maybe. I can't remember. Yeah, because...
Maybe not even. Maybe just 5 episodes?
No, because I'm fairly sure that Hungry Heart is the end of
one disc.
Disc
and
2.
Then Daphne Returns.
And then Daphne Returns is the start of disc 4.
Yeah.
So it would be all of disc 3.
Yeah, I think you're right.
6 episodes. And then I think it's just these 2 that Roz is missing from. But yeah,
but everyone else is in.
Everyone else is in every episode.
Well,
even the ones like... think of like Head Game or like Moondance. Frasier appears only very briefly.
That's true.
But he's still in them. So
there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, give it to me.
That's a 1. This is a 1. I hate it. I hate it so much. It's just like on the one hand, it's nice. It's like cathartic knowing that this is the last time we have to deal with this stupid plot line of Frasier and Julia and all that crap. but it's just because it's like coming to a head. It's just like the worst of that little arc condensed into a single episode. And I think you really feel the frustration of the fact that Julia spoils Daphne and Niall's pregnancy announcement.
Oh, you do?
Because it's like, that's such an exciting, for like the main couple of the show. We've had this slow burn of them getting together and then getting engaged and getting married, and now they're pregnant, and it's very exciting. And then it's spoiled by Julia, who's not even in the show again after this.
I'm wondering if it would be better or worse if they'd done it with a one-off guest star. If it had been like a one-off date that Frasier had. Mm-hmm. And they'd just been sort of a loudmouth and similar to how Julia acts, but it'd been a one-off character.
Yeah.
And they'd spoiled it. If we'd kind of maybe forgive that a little bit more.
Maybe.
I don't know. Because Julia, we know that she's horrible. The audience knows she's horrible. Roz knows she's horrible. Niles and Daphne know she's horrible.
Yeah.
And Martin does as well after dinner starts.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we've been kind of building up to them being in a relationship. Mm-hmm. So why do they then shoot it down? It's like they proper like nuke it from orbit.
Yeah, yeah.
Her story arc and just completely annihilate it. Yep. So I don't know. I don't know. Either way, yes, I'm glad to see the back of her, and I completely agree. This episode's a 1. It's really hard to watch. She's just so awful. And yeah, I think you kind of put yourself in Daphne and Niall's shoes here and think like how you would react in a situation like that. I wouldn't be as calm as they are.
No.
Because they kind of let it go. And they're like, oh, well, cat's out the bag and let's get on with things. I'd be livid. I don't know if there's words to describe how angry I'd be if something like that got spoiled.
You know a word that I really like? Apoplectic.
Apoplectic.
Yeah. It's just like seething with rage.
Yeah. That sums it up nicely.
Yeah. That's a good word.
I like it.
Yeah. So one from you?
One from me as well.
You agree with the
one from me as well.
Yeah.
So it's the first half, the first episode is kind of redeemable in certain ways. This one just very much isn't at all.
Yeah.
But it's fine because we have the back of Julia.
We do have the back of Julia.
We can now move on knowing that she is behind us.
And there's a fun little I guess bit of trivia about one of the jokes when Frasier and Niles are talking, and Niles is trying to convince Frasier not to just run away from relationships, and he refers to himself as the fault-finding, flaw-fleeing Frasier. Which was actually, it was an outtake. It was actually like a flubbed line.
Oh, really?
It wasn't an intentional joke, or apparently. I don't actually know how true that is. I wasn't there, obviously, but he supposedly like flubbed the line, and then David Hyde Pierce just ad-libbed making fun of him so perfectly that they just like ran with it, and they sort of start bickering, and it just made a perfect little close for that.
It does work very well. You said Frasier.
You said Frasier. It's really funny.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah, and I like the fact that they do stuff like that occasionally.
Yeah. There's actually a scene in, which episode was it? I noticed it. Was it The Babysitter, I think? That you can see David Hyde Pierce break character.
Oh, can you?
Yeah, if you remind me, I'll point out this.
Yeah,
the scene.
I'll need to go and have a look.
But it's the first time I ever noticed it. But you do see him smirking behind his hands.
Yeah,
it's really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Let's move on. Julia is now behind us.
Yes.
The Doctor is out. Very good episode.
Oh, an incredible episode.
Iconic episode.
I love it.
One that we have mentioned before a couple of times. It's sort of the go-to whenever there's sort of an undertone of homosexuality in Frasier, which there is on occasion. This is kind of the episode that surmises all of it and condenses it into one nice little present for everyone to open and unwrap and watch. That metaphor got away from me.
Yep.
We have wonderful Patrick Stewart as a guest star.
Incredible Patrick Stewart.
I mean, just getting Patrick Stewart to do any of your shows just must be such an amazing experience. He was the poo emoji in the Emoji Movie.
He was the poo emoji. Sir Patrick Stewart was the poo emoji.
You just don't get high class actors like him anymore.
Genuine class.
Alec Guinness.
Genuine class.
No, he really is. He's great, and he's so fantastic in this. Playing Alistair Burke, the head of the opera board. Or he's on the opera board. Is he head?
He may well be. I mean, he is an opera director as well.
And just this fantastic. He's very camp, very gay, very English, upper class. Thespian. Thespians more refers to like actors, doesn't it?
Thespian, I think, is specifically Shakespeare.
Right. Okay.
Which would be. I mean, Patrick Stewart is a
Patrick
thespian.
Stewart is, yeah.
The character, I guess, would more opera focused. I don't know if you'd still call him a thespian.
I was going to say like sort of what's the word for like theatric?
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say.
I know what you're saying.
And yeah, he kind of doesn't show up until sort of halfway through. Well, he does show up briefly, and then he comes into focus in the latter half of the episode. But it starts off with Roz introducing everyone to her new boyfriend, Bruce? No.
Barry.
I knew it was a B. Who is very camp, very stereotypically gay, very muscly, works in, is it women's clothing?
Yeah.
And he's sort of very obsessed with his physique and his fitness and everything, and Niles and Frasier immediately sort of clock that and stereotype him as gay and sort of make little jokes about it. Martin's like, that guy's not gay. You know how you can tell? The muscles. I love his innocence in that statement.
It's very funny that we're seeing the kind of old-fashioned stereotypes of gay men compared with the... We're not going to be able to do justice to like how well this episode deals with a lot of this stuff.
I was actually going to mention Matt Baum.
We have definitely mentioned a couple of times in previous episodes that have kind of explored Frasier talking about homosexuality and stuff. But I think there's 3 videos that Matt Baum has done on.
Did you not do one
Frasier
solely on this episode?
He did. I think he did one on The Matchmaker and one on this episode, and then one on kind of like the others in the middle. And yeah, it's really good. It's just talking about how it like encapsulates kind of attitudes towards gay people. Especially compared to like how other sitcoms have done it as well.
I was going to say he's a lot better at knowing like the history of other sitcoms and how they approach homosexuality in it. We're not great at like critiques or anything, but you know, I appreciate very much what they try and do with this episode in that there are a lot of stereotypes, and at no point really are they actively making fun of gay people by using the stereotypes. They're kind of exemplifying those stereotypes and making fun of the cast for falling for them, kind of thing. Case in point, when Frasier thinks he sees Barry outside Bad Billy's, the local gay bar, local gay establishment, he goes in and he's in his squash gear, wearing Niles' tight little shorts because his ripped, and he goes up to people. It's just a total like farce when he walks in there. He asks, what he says, "I'm looking for a guy." It's like, well, you've come to the right place.
I kind of guessing, judging by the shorts, or something like that.
And his furniture polisher Eduardo moonlights as the bartender there.
That's a euphemism. Yeah, it's got to be.
I mean,
furniture polisher. That sounds like a slur.
It very much does, actually. Yeah, I think when you put it like that. But just the fact that Frasier gets into it, he's dancing along to the music, he orders a sherry. It's all these like stereotypes. Even though we know Frasier isn't gay, it's all those stereotypes that you so easily just shift across and can apply to him.
Yeah.
To give the same attitude that they gave to Barry. And people do. Someone phones into his show the next day and says like, "Oh, I saw you last night at Bad Billy's. Why are you hiding this from your audience?" And he then becomes subject to everyone else thinking that he's gay.
Yeah.
And that kicks off the second half of the plot, where Alistair Burke, Patrick Stewart, also he hears a highlight on someone else's show.
Yeah,
doesn't he?
it's like the morning chat show or whatever. They replay it.
I can't remember what he says the names are, but it's very funny the way he says it. Mimi and Mandy or something. I can't remember. Yeah. So he assumes that Frasier's gay as well, and starts to sort of invite him along to the opera rehearsals, out to dinner, and it eventually sort of comes to light that they're actually dating, and Frasier doesn't realize it. So I think Patrick Stewart is one thing I quite like. I find funny. I don't know if it's like objectively funny, but the fact that a lot of people for years have said that Patrick Stewart is sort of secretly closeted, just because of his attitudes as a thespian, how he behaves around people and some of the roles that he's taken, how he acts and stuff. But I mean, he's happily married for like 34 years or something.
Yeah, I don't think it was actually that long ago they got married.
Oh, but they've been together.
I think they were together for a long time. So I remember seeing that when they got married, I think it was Ian McKellen performed the ceremony.
Well, his friendship with Ian McKellen, who's very openly gay, people kind of assume that Patrick Stewart is as well.
Oh, being in the theatre for like the whole second half of the 20th century.
I know, but it's very much like all these stereotypes again. Just you all thought about that. Not you all, but like in general,
people,
the royal
people
you.
think of that. Yeah,
people think about that. And the fact that he then got to play a role where he is just embodying all of these stereotypes in this role, kind of getting it out of his system. And I don't know, I quite like that. I think that's really, it's very inspired casting that they would be able to get Patrick Stewart for something like that.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of, he's playing the role that not everyone, that certain people assume that he is, which I quite like. I think he's kind of poking fun at himself while he's doing it, you know. So and that it all comes to a head at the opera party. Alistair announces Frasier as a new member on the opera board, which it's never really confirmed or denied whether he retains the role. He very well could. But he comes clean to Alistair and says, like, look, I'm not gay. He's like, what he says, would a weekend in Spain and Madrid change your mind? And Frasier, like, stops and has to think about it for a minute. He's like, we can certainly see. And he's like, no, I can't. But I love his hesitation there. And they kind of part ways amicably. Alistair kind of says, like, look, as long as you don't embarrass me in front of everyone now, we can do this in private later and we can sort of split ways, which is, I guess, pretty respectful. Very amicable. And then they all go to a naked hot tub party.
Yeah.
Which sounds like a laugh.
I mean, yeah.
Bunch of theatre folk.
Presumably.
I think it'd be good. It'd be good fun. I'd get naked in a hot tub with Patrick Stewart.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And there's so much this episode like that I think you could sit and analyze that I'm definitely not qualified for. I don't know if you have any more thoughts on it, but as we said, like Matt Baum's video I think does a really good job of why this episode is so great and why why Frasier was very progressive at the time in their attitudes towards like homosexuality.
Yeah.
We've said it before. You could look at it as, haha, everyone thinks Frasier's gay, they're making fun of it, kind of thing. But it's really not what they're doing at all.
No, not at all. I think it's really clever the way that they kind of play with the stereotypes. They kind of make comments about, Barry. Everyone assumes that Barry's gay, and also Roz, the way that Roz reacts when Frasier and Niles and Martin make a comment about it shows that it's not the first time that's happened.
Yeah.
People obviously have assumed that before, and she's, immediately defends him, like, just because he dresses well and like takes care of his body and like isn't, I mean, I was going to say not macho, I guess he is, but like not, stereotypically, that they would assume that he's gay. And then the exact there are also lots of gay stereotypes that are applied to Frasier, which have been explored in lots of other episodes. And Yeah, I think the way that they kind of play around with that like you can fall into a lot of these stereotypes and not necessarily be defined by them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't actually reflect who you are. And also, and then you can have someone like Alistair who he doesn't necessarily come across as overly gay. I mean, yeah, he's a bit camp. He doesn't necessarily come across as overly gay. And then until he sort of says, like, yeah, I went through the same thing, and he mentions that he had a boyfriend and had to come out to his wife, and you know, before that, if you had insisted he was straight, it probably would have flown under the radar, I guess.
Yeah,
maybe not, but
well, yeah, who knows?
Yeah,
but it's, yeah, no, I agree. It's very fun how they play with all these various things.
Mm-hmm.
I think you put it quite nicely. It's like all these stereotypes, like they don't define who you are, which is a pretty positive message to put across when you think about it.
The idea that someone has to do certain things or is not able to do certain things based on their sexuality is just it's very harmful in the long run. Yeah, and that's why this episode is so great. It is.
I didn't give it a full 5-cupper.
Ooh, really?
I didn't. And I'm not entirely certain on why. I think it's maybe how the plot is structured, in that it feels very much like a split episode. It's very much the first half is Frasier and Niles trying to disprove Barry being straight.
Yeah.
Or it feels like that's the first half of the plot. And the second half is all about Alistair and Frasier's relationship.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's something about it just doesn't flow quite as nicely as I would like it, I think.
Yeah, I guess.
Just the narrative of the plot's a little bit. Everything individually is great. It's all there are a lot of really funny jokes in it. And as we've spoken about, all the stuff with the homosexual stereotypes is really just enjoyable to watch when you think about it, and it comes out with a great message. So I did give it a 4. I did give it a 4, and it's probably a pretty high 4, but I just couldn't quite give it that full 5th cup. The elusive 5th cup, I'm afraid.
Fair enough. I'm a little surprised because I mean I definitely think of this as one of the best episodes of the show.
Really?
This was an immediate 5 for me.
Okay.
Because I think not only is it doing and saying lots of interesting things, it's also genuinely very, very funny.
Yeah.
Like lots of the jokes and the performances are great. And I really just think it kind of knocks out of the park.
Okay.
Patrick Stewart has got to be one of the best guest stars.
I think he is fantastic.
Across the whole show.
He is amazing, yeah.
Maybe even the best.
I don't know if I'd go that. One of the most notable, when you think of guest stars in Frasier, your mind probably jumps to Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'd go as far as saying the best.
Okay. I mean, I definitely.
I don't begrudge you a full
among
5
the best,
cups, to be fair.
Yeah.
But I couldn't quite match up to that.
And another little guest appearance, the as you mentioned, someone calls in and kind of tries to out Frasier on the air. Kevin is voiced by Benjamin Bratt, who is in various things. Miscongeniality is the thing that I know him best from.
Who is he in that?
He's like the other FBI agent, the kind of love interest, who shouldn't be the love interest because he's an arsehole. Yeah. I have opinions about Miscongeniality.
I like Miscongeniality.
It's a great film.
Yeah.
It's a really good film. Anyway. But yes.
That's for the next podcast.
That's for the next podcast. We can talk about
Miscongeniality podcast.
Yeah.
And as we've said, if you've not already, go and watch Matt Baum's videos on it.
Yeah,
because they're super interesting. They go into a lot more detail than we did, and he is a lot more knowledgeable on the subject of sitcoms and homosexuality in sitcoms.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely worth a watch.
Lots of interesting videos on more than just Frasier. He did a video about Leslie Jordan, who passed away recently, which was very interesting. He did a video about Angela Lansbury as well, which was really, really good. And one about the kind of the history of Will and Grace, which sort of tied into Frasier because
sort of off the back of Frasier.
Off the back of Frasier, because Sean Hayes, who was one of the main characters in Will and Grace, he played Jack in Will and Grace, kind of got snubbed a lot of the time at award shows. And when David Hyde Pierce won, I think it was the first time he won a Best Supporting Actor Emmy, he specifically called out the Emmys for not nominating Sean Hayes
Really?
alongside him.
I didn't know that.
And well, he kind of said like, "Oh, it's really great that I'm up against," and it was whoever it was. I think Peter Boyle from Everybody Loves Raymond was one of the others, and whoever it was.
I'm sorry.
Various,
Peter Boyle got a supporting
I think
actor
he got.
nom,
I think he,
and Sean Hayes didn't.
yeah, and I think it was like, that might have been one of the later years or whenever it was, but it was like other people that were nominated around the same time, and then he listed Sean Hayes, and then said, "Oh, he wasn't nominated. Well, he should have been." And it just was very clever. And then the next year, Sean Hayes won.
All right.
And thanks David Hyde Pierce for single-handedly nominating him, which is
I like Sean Hayes.
very funny. He's very good.
Fantastic.
He's very good.
And that's very well deserving of a
Oh, absolutely.
Emmy. I think him and Megan Mullally
They're
in
so
Will
funny.
and Grace just.
They're probably the highlight of that show.
They're such a good duo. They're better
As much as I love both Will and Grace. They are, yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, this isn't a Will and Grace podcast.
No, it's not. But we're talking about how great Matt Bown is.
I know.
So.
Yes, he is also amazing, and definitely check him out.
Yep.
Okay, we'll move on for now because time is ticking, and you've got some super brewing. That you need to get back to.
I do.
Ewan's making what is it? Winter veg soup?
A winter soup. I thought it was kind of funny because that's what Frasier makes in the Placeholder.
Oh, is it actually?
He kind of talks about.
I was going to say, like, when you said that, I was like, I've heard that somewhere.
He's
recently.
talking about making a winter soup, and he has it in his slow cooker.
That's
and
what it
I
is.
actually have a slow cooker full of winter soup that I'm going to have for my dinner when I get home.
I'm sure it will be tasty.
I'm sure it will.
Okay, next up, The Babysitter. So we get another great guest, who actually becomes a recurring character, which I am very thankful for, to be honest. And I actually thought she was introduced a lot later in this season. I don't know why. I think it's because of how the season concludes. I thought it was quite rushed.
Yeah.
Like in my head, I always remember it as being quite rushed. Oops, just punched the microphone. But it's not really, because this is right at the start. So yeah, I don't know what I'm thinking. But anyway, Wendy Malick joins as Ronnie Lawrence, who was Frasier and Niall's babysitter back in the day. He bumps into her while out shopping for a new couch for his private practice office, which he is going back to shortly. I think the next disc.
Yeah.
He goes back. We actually see him back to it. He and Niles are out shopping, bump into her. She's looking very good. I mean, Wendy Malick, very attractive.
Yep.
And I think it's implied that she is a wee bit older than the two of them, but she's had a lot of work done. I don't know how in real life if that's sort of a poke at Wendy Malick.
Yeah,
or if,
I don't know.
But either way, he's very attracted to her and invites her around for drinks. This then results in Martin stealing her.
Yeah.
Martin assumes that which actually is one of my favourite lines. Martin assumes that Frasier brought Ronnie home for him, and Frasier has this like look on his face and like, since when do I bring you woman? And the way that he just like shouts this at Martin is fantastic. We were talking a wee bit, I think it was just the last episode, about Kelsey Grammer kind of phoning it in a little bit, but there's a lot of really great lines actually that he's had recently.
I accidentally watched a little bit further ahead, so not in an episode that we're going to be talking about in this disc, but one at the start of the next disc.
Oh, I know what you're talking
about. There's a
exactly.
line delivery that he does, and it made me realize that Kelsey Grammer has one thing that he does really, really well, and that's that like it just really exaggerated. It's like the way that he has that line there, and I
don't know what you would call it.
I don't know. It's just this totally exaggerated, really theatrical line delivery that like you don't get from many other TV actors.
No,
and
he just nails it.
And he just it's so good, and that's the thing that he's best at. That I don't think anyone else does it as well as he does.
No, I don't think they ever will either.
And he just it's great.
But so I really love that line, and Martin proceeds to follow Ronnie. That she leaves to go and do her night show. She's a singer and piano player at a local, like I guess like jazz lounge. I don't really know what you would call it. Martin follows her down, and then Frasier follows her down after they both agree not to pursue her. It should be pointed out that they both renege on their agreement. But she's clearly very interested in Martin and not Frasier, and this puts him to. I'll try again. I'll try a third time. This puts him into a bit of a depression.
Yeah,
I got there eventually.
Mm-hmm.
This puts him into a bit of a depression, and he's just struggling. You see him. He's sitting on the couch. The door's wide open. He's eating profiteroles out the box, watching. What is what Wheel of Fortune? I think he says he's watching.
Mm-hmm.
It just thoroughly depressed, and this leads to him discovering some little blue pills in Martin's Velveeta box. I don't know. Velveeta is such a horrible name for cheese.
Yeah.
There's just something about the way that Velveeta sounds. It shouldn't be cheese. It should be like a carpet.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, just
it does, but I don't know why.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't know what that means, but I agree with you.
I just think of like velvet, but the thought of velvet texture of being something you eat.
I think you think of like velvet, like smooth.
Yeah.
It makes me picture like a very, very soft cheese.
I don't know.
Which I kind of
But it's like cheap, is it not?
Yeah, and it comes in like a rectangular, but we don't get Velveeta in this country.
Yeah,
if anyone in the States is just confused as to why we're so
if anyone wants to send us
bewildered,
some Velveeta.
someone wants to send us some Velveeta. We should open a PO box so people can send us cheese.
Do a Velveeta challenge on.
Oh God. Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of notorious for not being good cheese.
Well, Frasier and Niles Niles especially kind of balks at it when Frasier brings it out to make a sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
But they find Martin's little blue pills, and this is what?
Sorry, I'm thinking of what Frasier would be making the sandwich, because he says that he's putting his leftover chutneys.
Oh yeah.
So is it just Velveeta cheese and a bunch of different types of chutney? That sounds like a disgusting sandwich.
Cheese and chutney sandwich.
Well, like cheese and pickle.
Great.
No, but like low quality cheese and a bunch of different types of chutney mixed together.
Yeah, presumably high quality chutneys.
Yeah.
That evens out.
I don't know if it does.
Bad cheese, good chutney. Makes for a medium sandwich.
Not sure about that. I mean, we're British. We've got cheese and pickle sandwiches.
We do.
That's
I like a cheese and pickle sandwich.
Cheese and pickle sandwich is pretty good.
Plowman's.
Yep.
Bad. Right, so I can't remember where it was.
I don't know.
I
distracted me.
Little blue pills. Martin has had to go to the pharmacy and pick up some pills to help him perform, because he keeps picturing Ronee as the little babysitter, which in hindsight, kind of fair. If he's like an older man now and he's picturing her as a young teenager, the fact that he's kind of a bit uncomfortable with that, I think is pretty normal.
Yeah.
He's not kind of seeing her as she is now and really how she was when he knew her. And initially, Frasier kind of points towards guilt of feeling attracted to her when she was younger and when he was younger as well. But we find out that it was actually just because it was a different babysitter.
He was just thinking of someone else.
Just thinking of someone else in a little... He says that like she was in a school uniform all the time. I presume like a private school uniform.
Yeah.
And that was what made him feel uncomfortable, which I get, like, fair enough, I guess. But during this kind of realization and guilt-ridden discussion, Frasier kind of finds his mojo again.
Yeah.
And he figures out what Martin's issue is, and then he figures out what Niles has been like chattering a lot throughout the whole episode. He kind of keeps banging on, much like I do, just like rambling.
Yeah.
And Frasier kind of diagnoses that very quickly. He realizes that it's whenever Frasier brings up the fact that he's returning to private practice, and obviously Niles is apprehensive about that. He doesn't want Frasier taking his space in the private practice world. He's kind of not jealous or envious, but just kind of, I don't know.
Jealous.
Jealous, you think?
I think kind of concerned that Frasier's going to sweep in and do a better job than he is.
Yeah.
And kind of resentful that Frasier always, does the things that he's already doing.
I think resentful is kind of the word I was looking for. But yeah, he is. But Frasier reassures him, and he's kind of back on track. He's found his pizzazz, his mojo, and gets himself out of that funk. And And that's kind of us.
Mm-hmm.
But Martin goes off and pursues Ronnie again without the help of his pills.
Yep.
Niles is quite comfortable with Frasier going back to private practice. And yeah, we will see Ronnie again shortly.
Yeah.
We will see Frasier back in private. We will see Frasier
Mm-hmm.
again in private practice again soon too. God, I'm struggling today.
Yeah.
So the thing I was going to mention about Niles, David Hyde Pierce breaking character is
Mm-hmm.
when they're in the kitchen and they find the Velveeta box with the blue pills in it, and then they drop it, and Martin opens the front door. Niles screams, and he does this really like high pitched girly scream.
Yeah.
And when Martin walks in, they're trying to like mask their shock,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see David Hyde Pierce like holding his hand over his mouth, and he's kind of smirking behind it,
Yeah.
because of this noise that he made. It was really.
I need to
funny
go.
when
I
it
need to go
was
back
like-
and watch
yeah,
that
you
so
need
I
to
can
see
see
it.
that.
It's really good. So the Babysitter.
Hmm.
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think it does well to introduce a new character. I think, again, it suffers a little bit from this kind of split plot rather than a three-act story. We get quite a lot at the start of them introducing Ronnie and going out to her jazz club, and then the second half of the episode is all about Martin dealing with his issues, Frasier dealing with his issues, Niles dealing with his issues. So it feels very much like a part 1, part 2 rather than a 3-act story, which is an issue we've had multiple times across the show. Or okay, it's an issue I've had with the show. I don't know whether it's actually like an objective issue or not.
Mm-hmm.
But Wendy Malick's great. I think there's a lot of humor around, particularly the Velveeta stuff. I think it's very funny, and a lot of Ronnie's jokes about her plastic surgery and her sort of I don't want to say conning, but gathering money from the patrons at her club are very funny. So yeah, I give it a 3. I'm actually thinking I kind of want to bump that up a bit, but I'm going to stick with what I've got.
Yeah.
I think it is quite middle of the road. It falls down a little bit in just kind of overall narrative quality, I think. But the performance of Wendy Malick and then a lot of the humor surrounding her character is enough to kind of secure it as a pretty decent episode.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it's getting the introduction of Ronnie, and just having Wendy Malick in is really great, and it makes the episode a lot stronger. And I like her relationship with Martin, and it's nice seeing that kicked off. And I think it lends itself to some good jokes. I think the rest of the episode is just sort of nothing. It's not bad. It just also doesn't really add anything. So overall, it just balances out as a 3.
You got a 3 as well?
Give it a 3 as well.
Big fat thropper.
Big fat thropper.
Yeah, it's. I feel like I kind of want to give it more because of Wendy Malick, but we'll leave it as it is. There's other episodes coming up that I think are a lot better, that give her character a bit more life. But yeah, the introduction's great, and I think she does well as a recurring character until the end of the show.
Yep.
The end of the series. Okay, next up, the Placeholder. Yep.
Yeah.
We're introduced to Anne. Can't even remember her second name.
Hodges.
Anne Hodges, thank you. Roz's friend, and date for Frasier. She again is a recurring character, although granted far fewer episodes than Ronnie, thankfully.
Yeah.
She is just about the most insufferable character I've ever seen in a sitcom.
She is pretty bad.
And this kind of puts Julia into new perspective, because at least Julia you hate her, but she has a personality that you're designed to hate.
Yeah.
Anne is just the worst. Are you meant to hate her?
Yeah, you're supposed to find her annoying.
Yeah, but she's like annoying. She's not bitchy or funny.
Yeah,
she's just annoying.
Yeah, yeah. You hate Julia, but I think a lot of the time, the comments that she makes about other people when she's being sort of rude and snarky are often funny.
Yeah,
or at least they're sometimes funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Anne is just annoying.
Just the worst. That is my notes for this episode, by the way. It's just Anne is the worst.
Yep.
So she gets set up on a date with Frasier. Frasier initially declines, but after just thinking of Mr. Bottomsley. After watching his neighbour's cat, Mr. Bottomsley, and going out to dinner and being the only single person there, he goes out with Martin and Ronee and Niles and Daphne. He comes home to the cat. He's feeding the cat. He brings out like a full dinner platter with fresh tuna for the cat, and then he puts a rug around himself. He's got his sweater on. He takes the cat up to look in his old antique mirror, and he's kind of petting the cat, and he realizes, oh my god, no.
Yeah.
What does he say?
I'm Aunt Shirley.
I'm Aunt Shirley.
Yeah.
And he realizes just how miserable and single and lonely he is. So he rushes over the phone and he calls up Anne, and he eventually goes on the date. And yeah, we've kind of got hints at what she's like in the first scene with her and Roz at Nervosa. But here she just talks and talks, and she has absolutely zero social awareness of what's going on. They're ordering food, and she goes off to the bathroom, and she's very open about what she's doing in the bathroom, and it's like, oh my god,
just a terrible first date.
Just shut up. And then she starts complaining about her previous, is it her husband? I think she got divorced.
I think she's talking about her husband.
And then her previous dates that she's been on, it's like, well, yeah,
no
wonder.
The call's coming from inside the house, Anne.
And amidst all this, he bumps into Kenny, who was also trying to set him up earlier in the episode with his cousin, who is aptly named Miss Wright.
Yes.
Who is, objectively very attractive woman. It seems very keen on Frasier, listens to the show. She's very friendly and sort of amiable. Amicable's when it's... What's the difference between amiable and amicable?
I'm not entirely sure. I think amiable is likable.
Yeah. Amicable is like an amicable breakup when you're both friends afterward. I don't know.
I'm not sure if there's that much of a difference.
Yeah, it's fine. I failed English the first time. That's fine. At school, not in life.
No, just trying to learn. I accidentally learned French instead.
Yes. I learned the other languages first. It's a wonder I can get through a single sentence, honestly. So he kind of becomes a bit enamored with Miss Wright and tries to leave the date with Anne early, but as we said, she has zero social awareness, so she doesn't take the hint. He tries to take a fake phone call. She doesn't take the hint again. He then finally, he eats the food off her plate and drinks her wine, and then physically sees her to the door and pays for her taxi, and she still doesn't leave.
Yeah.
She comes back in, and in fairness, he probably should have given it 5 minutes before he tried to sit with Kenny and Liz Wright?
Yeah.
Is that her name? But yeah, she comes in and interrupts, and obviously just throws the whole plan up in the air. It's very awkward, that kind of scene, and Frasier does deserve it. But really, he should have just said, Anne, leave me alone. You're awful. I hate you. Here is a woman who actually seems very pleasant, and I would like to speak with her now. Goodbye.
I guess the problem is that if she reacted badly, then that's immediately going to put him off on the wrong foot if he's then going to try and get with Liz.
But she did react badly.
She did. Yeah. He still completely fumbled it. I'm sure that what he should have done is tried to find a solution where Anne is not going to freak out.
I guess.
Rather than just telling her to piss off. Because that probably would have had her react just as badly.
Well, maybe, but he could have easily swung that and just said, "Oh, she was a blind date. We didn't hit it off. You seem lovely. Would you like to have a drink?" There we go. 2 sentences. Sorted.
Yeah.
No?
I don't know. I don't know how someone would react in that situation. I don't know if I would react very well to someone if they did that with me. If I saw them having a terrible date. If it was a blind date.
Yeah. And someone was upfront with me.
I think that's something
I would much rather that.
That's something that you probably could explain away in time. I don't think I would immediately go and ask someone else out. I would at least give it a little bit of time.
I guess,
but
maybe.
Who knows?
Yeah. Okay. I gotta be honest, I don't remember if there's a secondary plot to this episode. I don't think there is. Is there?
There could be. Is this the... No.
The Doo-Wop-Palooza is the next
Doo-Wop-Palooza is the next episode. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Well, no, not really, because I think it's just like the opening. You've got the 5 of them go out for dinner. Martin and Ronee and Daphne and Niles and Frasier.
And then you've got Rose and Kenny who are trying to set him up.
Yeah.
And that's about it. The rest of it's just them all at dinner and fumbling.
Speaking of excellent guest stars, like some of the best guest stars in the whole show, Mr. Bottomsley. He's just an adorable little cat.
I thought he would. You know when you get some cats in TV shows and they're just cats. They're just generic cats. They're just there. They do their job and go home. He's one of those cats who's got like the little chubby faces.
He's grey
and the big eyes,
and he's so cute,
and he's so adorable, and he likes his tuna.
He does.
He's got a stupid name, which just makes him all the more adorable.
Mr. Bottomsley. It's a great name for a cat.
It is a fantastic name for a cat. You're more into cats than I am. I'm more a dog person.
You are more a dog person.
I can appreciate a cute cat when I see it.
I kind of like both cats and dogs. I don't know if I'm necessarily.
You're not more a cat person?
Not necessarily. My partner's definitely more a cat person, which I think would sway me more on if I were to get either a cat or a dog. It would be a cat, but that's not.
You're gonna get a cat named Mr. Bottomsley?
Possibly.
That would be cute.
Possibly.
I'd babysit.
I want to give it a
cat. I'd cat sit Mr. Bottomsley.
Mr. Bottomsley.
I'd get my sweater on, bring him some tuna.
Yeah.
We'd sit and play in the mirror.
Yeah. Hold the cat up to the mirror and have him experience his own existence.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a great evening.
Break his little mind. So yeah, genuinely talking about guest stars. So yeah, Anne is played by Julia Sweeney, who is actually a very funny actress.
Yeah,
and has had guest spots in various other things. She was in Brooklyn Nine-Nine not long ago.
Was she?
I don't know which season it was. I think it was.
Who did she play?
There's an episode which is right after Jake and Amy get married. Spoilers for Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It came out years ago.
I know.
When just after they've gotten married and they're in a hospital, Jake needs to watch a patient.
That's right.
And she's like an older woman, and it turns out that she's actually got a bomb.
Yeah, she's trying to murder. I think the guy killed her son or something. I can't remember. Yeah, like and they're trying to protect him. Yeah, I know who you are. Yeah,
and she's like,
right,
it's a very funny just sort of guest spot where she's playing this kind of
great.
Sweet old woman who's also a terrorist.
Yeah,
and she's like kind of lots of similar guest spots in various things, and she was in a few things more recently.
Yeah. I feel like it bears repeating. I know we've said it a couple of times, but whenever we are criticizing characters, we are not criticizing the actors behind them.
I think especially if it's a character that we dislike, where we're supposed to dislike them.
Yeah.
If anything, it's a credit to the actor that they've done such a good job of being so unlikable. That goes for someone like Felicity Huffman as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And also Liz Wright is played by Krista Allen, which is a name that I recognized, although I didn't actually know her from an awful lot. She was in Days of Our Lives for a long time. I don't know how long. Before
they had all the pretty
kind of in
actors,
the 90s.
didn't
they did. And she was in Liar Liar, the Jim Carrey film.
Oh yeah.
Was
she the liar?
No, Jim Carrey's the liar. That's the whole plot of that film.
I know that.
You idiot! You fool! There's a scene when he's in the lift. And he bumps into one of his neighbors, and he keeps accidentally because he's cursed, he's not allowed to lie. He keeps making comments about her breasts, And it's his joke about like, oh, she's really gorgeous, and he's basically just sexually harassing her.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure how I feel about Liar Liar. It's a very dated film.
It's a little bit dated, yeah.
But yeah, that was Krista Allen.
Okay.
As well.
I didn't realize she was kind of like a notable guest star. She's not in this episode a whole lot.
She's not in an awful lot. I think she often tends to just sort of appear in little bit parts as just like an attractive woman.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was in Days of Our Lives for quite a long time in the 90s. Yeah. So
there's quite a few actors got their start in Days of Our Lives, I suppose. Yeah. Can't criticize that too much. Right, the placeholder.
It's a 1.
1. Yeah, I'm glad we agree.
It's not a good episode.
It's really not enjoyable. Even Mr. Bottomsley cannot save this episode. The poor cat. No, it's another one of those episodes that's just really quite difficult to watch because of how insufferable certain characters are.
Yep.
Anne at first, and then Frasier when he's trying to get out of that situation with Miss Wright. It's all very uncomfortable. The plot is very thin, and unless you find that kind of humor, like Anne's kind of humor, the annoying character funny, it's not a good watch.
Yeah.
I don't even know if there's anyone that finds that kind of humor funny. I imagine there must be some.
She definitely stands out, I think, amongst fans from what I've seen of people talking about it online. She stands out as one of the sort of like low points of the show.
Yeah.
People really do not like the character at all, and it definitely stands out.
No, I can understand that. Understand and relate. Cool. Mm-hmm. 1 cup for the placeholder.
1 cup.
Now, final episode of the disc. I don't know why I said that so weird. I'm listening. The first time we've actually had like a I'm listening title.
Yeah.
I would have thought we would have something like that a lot sooner. Like, thanks for listening, or I'm listening, or
yeah.
Did we had good night, Seattle?
Well, that's the last episode.
That's the last episode. So yeah, so it's only now.
It's
season 11. We've not had any like references to Frasier's common speeches.
Yeah, I suppose not.
But there we go. So I'm listening. Refers to Frasier, who seems to just keep getting into little predicaments where he's overhearing Ronee and Martin's conversations. He finds out that she is still seeing other people while dating Martin, which, you know, if they're not exclusive, fair enough. But he brings that up with Martin. Martin gets quite upset, one with him for eavesdropping, and with Ronee for, well, kind of with himself, I guess, for letting himself get involved in a new relationship, but not realizing that she didn't feel as strongly towards him as he did towards her. And this leads to a fun little farce at Cafe Nervosa where Roz pretends to be Martin's date and Ronnie's with her date, and everyone doesn't know who's who, and Sheila's there, and it's just all very funny. And then Roz's date turns up. It's very weird. But very funny as well, and very much back on form for the sort of Frasier farce.
Yeah.
It's
a shame. It's only really the one scene.
It's only the one scene.
Which is a bit disappointing.
Yeah, the rest of the episode is, well, Martin finally comes clean to Ronee and admits that, he does want a relationship with her. Only to have Frasier eavesdrops on the two of them together. And then he finds himself in Ronnie's car and eavesdrops on them eventually making out and potentially more. Don't know. I hope not. From the back seat of the car.
Not
very unpleasant. So he doesn't really get over his issues of eavesdropping on people, but I imagine after that incident in the car, he would probably try a lot harder.
Probably, yeah.
I certainly would. But yeah, it's one of those episodes that's very good, but not for really any great reason. It's just kind of a fun watch.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just quite enjoy this episode. I think Ronnie and Martin's chemistry is really great. I think she very much just works her way into the cast, the recurring cast, very easily. And
yeah, she does.
just slots right in. I would have loved if we'd had Wendy Malick previously. You know, the last time we had a recurring partner for Martin was Sherry, and that was season 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Who again is also amazing.
Yeah.
So they kind of,
and they're quite similar characters. Not incredibly similar, but kind of similar.
Yeah, they have their similarities.
Musical, they're both a bit loud,
quite
they're
flamboyant.
They're both very flamboyant, and and I think we don't get as much of like Frasier and Niles butting heads with Ronnie, as we did with Sherry.
Yeah,
but which is nice because we have seen that before, so it's nice that we're not just getting more of that. But you could imagine like the opening scene to this episode with Ronnie at the piano.
Yeah, she's singing.
And you know, Frasier gets woken up and she's kind of winding him up about being grumpy. You could imagine Sherry doing that. I think.
100%.
You know, they're really not. They're not dissimilar.
No, I never really thought of them as similar. To be honest, I never really gave it much thought. But yeah, you're right. There is a lot there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've given me a new angle to think about.
Yeah. Overall, so what did you give it?
I didn't give a ranking yet.
Ranking,
but I gave it a 4.
Yeah.
I gave it a 4. I really like this episode. I don't know, I was quite surprised by it. I really like Wendy Malick. I think she's a really great actor. I like Ronnie as well as a character. I think the scene in Cafe Nervosa is really funny. I think when Roz comes to visit later on is very funny. Her kind of trepidation entering the apartment, like not knowing if she still needs to lie or not.
Yeah,
is great. Frasier's just inherent ability to just ruin everyone's day by listening in on their conversations and getting involved is great, and Martin calling him out on it. I don't know, it's just a really fun episode. Niles trying to woo his nursery painter by getting tickets for Doo-Wop-Palooza. I don't know, it's just a really fun episode, and normally I would give it a bit lower, but just when I was watching it I was like, you know, I really like this. I'm gonna give it a 4. I want to give it a 4 cups.
Fair enough. I didn't give it quite as high a rating.
Oh no.
I give it a 2.
Oh no. Well, that's quite low.
I think it's a little bit more. It's definitely not bad. I think it's a high 2. I just definitely think it's a bit below average. I think getting more of Ronnie properly. I mean, we did get her in the last episode as well, but we're actually getting an episode centered more around her and getting her to kind of show off and be a lot of fun. Is good. I think the scene in the cafe with all the kind of double meanings and misunderstandings is funny, but not as good as it has been done other times.
No, that's fair.
And it's very short. I think it's definitely not bad. It's just not really long enough to be that interesting or impressive or do anything particularly funny.
That's fair.
Yeah. So in the end, I kind of, it comes down on just a little bit below average.
Okay.
So I give it a 2. I guess maybe it would have been better to give it a low 3 than a high 2, but I'm going to stick with a 2.
That's a shame. So you'd rank The Babysitter higher then?
Yeah, I think The Babysitter is a bit stronger.
Okay.
All it really comes down to between the two is the kind of jokes that are written for Ronnie.
Okay.
Because I think she's definitely the highlight of both episodes.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that the jokes when she's introduced and this kind of the stuff about babysitting Frasier and Niles and all of the jokes about like while she's at work and things like that we don't get in I'm Listening are a lot funnier.
Okay.
So that sort of puts it up.
That's fair. I'll grant you that. Don't agree, but I'll give you it.
Yeah. We don't have to agree about everything.
We don't. But I'm hoping you'll give me a decent highlight that I can laugh about.
Oh man, I don't even know what I could give you as a highlight. I mean, it may well just be Patrick Stewart. I'm trying to think if there's any particular deliveries.
I mean, that's a fair highlight, to be honest, of this disc.
Particularly good jokes. It's kind of just any time he's on screen, he's very funny. he makes a joke about La Boheme, and he having to speak to his lead actress and say, you're having to ask her to lay off the cheeseburgers because you're dying of consumption, not overconsumption. And I think it's just that the kind of dry delivery. It's like he's I don't know, someone.
It's like he's someone.
He's like no coward.
No,
I was trying to think of a better example than no coward of someone who's witty, but yes,
not you.
Not definitely not me. No coward.
I mean, not me either. But yes,
for some reason I was going to say Orson Welles. That was the first name that popped into my head. I don't know why that was the first name that popped into my head.
You're dying of consumption, not overconsumption.
French.
I love Orson Welles. He's such an asshole.
Yeah, he is.
So I've got a few that I quite like. There's a couple from I'm Listening. I love the joke when Frasier gets chewed out by Martin for eavesdropping on their conversation, and two guys at the opposite table start like giggling, and Frasier turns around and kind of gives them a talking to and says like, "Don't you know it's rude to listen in other people's conversations?" And the two guys start signing to each other, like what's going on, and you realize that they're deaf, and you're like, oh my god! It's just like total bury your head in the hand in head in your hands moment.
Yeah,
but I love the way that it's portrayed, and Frasier's just like, oh no.
I was curious to see what it was they were signing.
Yeah,
and apparently I don't know if this is true. I did.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is true. Like, take this with a pinch of salt because it's just something I read on the internet. But apparently, the first guy says, "What's his problem?" and the other one says, "I have no idea." So it's not necessarily like a joke. I think that would have been a good opportunity to put in a nice little joke for the
sneaky.
For the sign language speaking audience. But yeah, I think it's just funny that they just,
I love that they're
problem?
so like baffled by this crazy man who's interrupting their conversation.
Yeah.
But the other one is also from I'm Listening, and it's when Frasier's looking for his money clip, and Niles comes in. He's like rummaging around the pillows, and Niles just kind of starts rummaging the pillows as well.
Yeah.
he just like for whatever reason, he's just like, okay, this is what we're doing now. And he kind of says like, what are we looking for? Freres says, oh, my money clip. Have you seen it? And Niles just turns around and says, rarely. And I just love that like dry one-liner.
Yeah.
That Frasier's really stingy and
just immediately getting his ass.
Pay for things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that level of sarcasm is just beautiful. So I think I'll give it to that. I love Niles' little one-liner comment, but the two deaf guys as well, I think is great. I'm trying to think if there's anything else earlier on. Not really. The Cherry Garcia drawing. Could get that tattooed.
Cherry Garcia. It's quite funny.
I think it's quite funny, yeah. Okay. Disc 1. 3 left.
Yeah.
3 left.
Only 3 episodes left.
I know.
Wild.
I know. Feels like just yesterday.
Yeah, it wasn't that long.
The harp playing in the background.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll crack on. We'll get these last 20 some episodes done. Not even 20. 18 episodes to go. Out of the way. We will be making some announcements soon.
Yep.
We need to finalize some things, organize some things.
Hold on to your hats.
Hold on to your butts, as the great Samuel L. Jackson says. Yeah. It's really not that exciting, but we hope you'll stick around and listen out to what we've got going on next. But until we do, please also still stick around and listen to the end of this podcast.
Yes.
Yeah. Anything you got to add?
No, I don't think so. Yeah. Shout out again to From the Desk of Martin and Ronee for giving us a little mention on Instagram. And hello again if anyone has joined us specifically from there. and managed to stick with this
I
episode
know,
for this
yeah.
one.
If you've made it this far, congratulations.
And also, yeah, absolutely go and check out Matt Bam talking about The Doctor Is Out.
100%.
And about whatever else.
If we remember, we'll link the video.
Yes.
With the,
I will
the
try
podcast release.
I will do that.
Yeah. Excellent. Right, well, have a great day, everyone. Good mental health, and thank you for listening. This has been a Happy Brothers podcast. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HappyBrosPod.
All opinions are our own, and as always, special thanks to Leah O'Donnell for the show's artwork.